room visits. 38% increase in the number of marijuana-related hospitalizations. Seizures of illegal Colorado marijuana increased by 34%. Marijuana contributes to psychosis and schizophrenia, so forth and so on. These are all the things in New Jersey, where I live. I explained to the senator's representatives that last year, 20% of the people killed on our highways in New Jersey tested positive for marijuana, and it's not even legal yet. What is it going to do to, I said, what you're doing is you're putting money ahead of the safety and welfare of the people of our country. I don't like to play jokes. I'm very passionate about what I do. It's not a game and it's not a joke. But that's my little do have some drugs thing. But first I want to show you a picture of my pride and joy. Oh, nope, wrong slide. Okay, I'm sorry. It was funny. You can laugh. You're allowed in church. You're allowed to laugh in church. Here's my pride and joy. Here's the young lady standing at the top is my daughter Carolina, my wife in the middle, my second daughter Olivia, my son-in-law Sean, and of course me. But when that picture was taken, we didn't have our true pride and joy. That's the next slide. Tell me that's not your cup of coffee, okay? I told my kids, I said, send it to Starbucks. Maybe they'll use her as a commercial for them. And then, but you know, this is the reason, one of the reasons why I do what I do now in life is because I want to fight for this young lady and all your young kids and every other kid out there that I can reach. And the next slide, please. Okay, that's another picture of when she was 5 months old. And then she's a little chameleon here, and her eyes would change. But the next slide would be me playing basketball. Now, don't laugh, that's when I had hair. Okay? Today I got some hair, some's hair, and some's not. Okay? So that's where we get with that. And okay, a couple of photos and all. When I talk about drugs, this is something that's affecting everybody either directly or indirectly. Some of us might not realize that it's affecting us, but believe me, if it hasn't affected you already, just give it time and it will affect you in the future. When I say the word drugs, I also mean the word alcohol, because alcohol is still the number 1 drug we have in this country. It's destroying our families, killing our kids, and it's destroying our country, basically. I used to say that the only difference between drugs and alcohol was one was legal and one was not. I can no longer say that because of them trying to legalize marijuana with that SAM report that I just gave to you. It's important for you to know how God has blessed me in my life. And you need to know the battles that I face so you get a better understanding. I'm going to tell you my story. I used to travel around the world with a team called the Harlem Globetrotters, where I was on the opposition team called the Washington Generals. And that's the team that the Globetrotters always used to beat up on all the time. When I was playing with the Washington Generals, we had a record of no wins and 245 losses. Funny for you, but not for me. But with a record of no wins and 245 losses, you would have thought that I'd know what losing was all about. I was an all-American kid growing up. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, and I didn't do drugs. All through high school, all through college, and even all through my professional basketball career. But something happened to me when I was 27 years old. That's going to happen to everybody in here, whether it has happened or not, I don't know. When I was 27 years old, I used to work at a place called Wildwood, New Jersey during the summer times, and I would go down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida during the winters. Well, this one winter when I was 27, I was living in Florida, and I received a telephone call. Now, this telephone call changed my whole life as it is today. You see, I picked up the telephone, and the person on the other end of the line said to me, "Your mother's dead." You see, when I got this phone call, I felt these feelings, I felt these emotions, and I felt this pain that I never felt before in my life. I had to come up to New Jersey and go to the viewing of my best friend, my mother. After her funeral, there was something different in my life. Because I went back down to Florida with these feelings, with these emotions, with this pain, with this emptiness in my heart, knots in my stomach, all because I lost my best friend, my mother. When I went back down to Florida this time, I went over to one of my so-called friends' houses. My friend said, "Here, Big Al, try some of this. This will help ease the pain that you're going through, help you escape reality for about a week or two." And this is where I made the biggest mistake that I ever made in my life. I said the word yes, and that was something called cocaine. Now, my friend told me it was going to help me for a week or two. My friend lied. Because my 2-week escape turned into 7 years of living hell. 7 years where it started off free because it was given to me by a so-called friend. Then I realized I had to buy it. Then I realized how expensive it was. And then I myself turned into a big-time drug dealer, where my own personal habit grew from being free to up to $1,000 a day at times. $1,000 a day. Needless to say, I am lucky to be alive. Or better yet, I like to say, somebody up there must really love me. You see, the cocaine destroyed my life. It raped me of everything I had, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It destroyed my life. It took everything from me except for my life. And the funny part about that is I can't see the damage that I've done to the inside of my body, because we can't see inside of ourselves. It all started out for me at that party on Friday and Saturday nights. My Friday turned into Saturday. My Saturday turned into Sunday. My Sunday turned into Monday. And then before I knew it, I was only drinking and drugging on days to start with letter T. Tuesday and Thursday, I wish, because it became today and tomorrow. I lived to use, and I used to live. I was drinking and drugging every day. I used to live in a house with all my shades pulled down, even during the daytimes, because I would be constantly peeking out my windows because I thought there was somebody out there chasing me. There was nobody out there chasing me, of course. But this was the beginning stages of the paranoia that was setting into my life. I wouldn't fall asleep at nights, I'd pass out. I wouldn't wake up in the morning, I would come to. If I had to brush my teeth, I had to do a line of cocaine just to get the energy. To get out of my bedroom, to get to my bathroom, to brush my teeth. You see, I was sick. You see, I was sick. I didn't care about you, but more important, I didn't care about myself, because I loved getting high and I loved getting drunk. During my last 2 years of my 7-year addiction, the drugs paralyzed me for a month and a half and I couldn't walk. You would think that this would straighten me out. You see, it did for a month and a half because I couldn't get out of my house to get my drugs, and none of my so-called friends were delivering. My so-called friends. I used to have a lot of drugs. I used to have a lot of money. And I used to have a lot of friends. There came a time near the end of my 7-year addiction that I ran out of money, ran out of drugs, and again, guess who else ran out of me? My so-called friends. When I ran out of money, drugs, and friends, I was about ready to be tossed out to the gutter, no place to live, nothing to eat, nowhere to sleep. And that's when I said to myself, I better get a job. You see, when I was drinking and drugging, I couldn't hold a job. Because at 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, when everyone was getting up to go to work, I was always still trying to fall asleep. Because I was either drunk or high all night. But a funny thing happened to me since I stopped drinking and drugging. I was able to actually get a job and hold on to it for once, which enabled me to have a roof over my head, food in my mouth, clothes on my back, and things started going better for me since I stopped drinking and drugging. I even met this beautiful young lady one day, and I got engaged. Now, since all these wonderful things were happening to me, I came up with this brilliant idea. I said, I can go back out for my drinking and drugging just on Fridays and Saturdays for fun. So I started drinking and drugging on Fridays and Saturday nights instead of going out with my girlfriend. Until one day I walked into my apartment, and this young lady had a surprise waiting for me. She was sitting on my sofa, crying her eyes out like a baby, with my ring in her hand. When I walked into the apartment that day, she said, "Here, pal, here's your ring back. Get out of my life." She said, "I'm sick and tired of watching you destroy yourself." She said, "I'm sick and tired of watching you kill yourself, and I'm not going to let you destroy and kill me." You see, when this young lady gave me that ring back and threw me out of her life, I finally realized something. I finally realized that me, this big, bad, macho guy that I thought I was, that I had a problem. 3 days after she threw me out of her life, I had to do the toughest thing that I ever had to do as a man, and that is this. I went over to an older woman's house crying like a baby, and I said to this lady, I said, "I've got a drug problem." In today's world, when somebody goes to an adult, they say they got a drinking problem, a drugging problem, or some other sort of problem. A lot of adults might give you a big lecture. A lot of adults might scream and yell at you or something like that. The lady that I went to that day did something so simple that doesn't cost one penny. She said to me, she said, "That's okay." She reached out to me, she gave me a hug, and took me for help. That's why my program is called Do Hugs, Not Drugs. Not because it's cute. It's because something so simple as some love, something so simple as some caring, actually saved my life. There's no doubt in my mind, if that lady would have given me a big lecture, if that lady would have screamed and yelled at me that day, that I would not be standing before you today, because I would be dead. But like I said, after that lady gave me the hug, she took me for help, and the rest is history. For many years, I've traveled around the country speaking in schools, prisons, and churches, giving my testimony, hoping and just trying just to touch one life a day, just to save one life. I've attended many funerals of kids 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. 10-year-old kid died from huffing gasoline. 11-year-old girl went to a party, got drunk, 5 guys took advantage of her that night. The next day at school, they're calling her all these nasty names. She goes home from school that day, gets her father's gun, puts it to the side of her head and blows her brains out. Kids hanging themselves. All these different things because kids are hurting for so many reasons in this world. I've seen what drugs have done to families, and I didn't want this to happen to me. And I won't win any Father of the Year awards, I'll tell you that right now, because we all fall short of the glory of God. And boy, sometimes I fall so short that I'm just hanging on by my fingertips. I realize that I've made mistakes raising my kids, just like everybody does raising their kids. I didn't handle a lot of things properly, maybe, but my kids, their welfare was the most important thing in my life, so maybe sometimes I panicked. I thank God that I have a loving wife because she's the voice of reason, because many times I was unreasonable. Maybe all my experiences had made me tougher, all my kids, or maybe I was just afraid of losing them. I apologized to my kids 5 years ago in front of 1,000 people at a church for all the pain that I may have caused them. But my mission and my thoughts was always with their best interest in mind. My one daughter had told me she hated me. And I said to her, listen, I'm not in this world to be your friend. I'm in this world to be your father. So I can be friendly, but I have to make some tough decisions, and I make decisions that are best for you, that I think. Probably the most well-known Bible verse is John 3:16 in the world. Can we get to that one? Yeah, there it is. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. See, that's the most well-known Bible verse, I think, in the world. And when something is so well-known, I believe it starts to lose its meaning. In other words, some of these words are taken for granted. I know some of you have probably experienced this, but for those of you that haven't, but can you imagine giving up your son or giving up your daughter? What an awesome God we serve. Now, I'm not trying to compare myself to God, but I want to personalize this verse. No one ever told me that doing drugs can affect your future kids. Now, I had the opportunity to feel and relate to the pain of losing a child or two. I got married to the same girl who threw me out of her life. It took me 3 years to get her back, but I had to get myself back first. My wife got pregnant, and I did a lot of praying, and I did a lot of crying, hoping and praying that my previous drinking and drugging wasn't going to affect our future child. On August the 7th, one year, at 6:49 in the morning, my wife and I had a beautiful baby girl. I went home from the hospital that day to get some sleep. Before my head hit the pillow, my telephone rang. It was my wife on the other end of the line screaming and crying that there's something wrong with our baby, there's something wrong with our baby. When I hung up that phone that morning, I started to cry my heart out as I'm walking away from that phone, and I stopped. And I looked up to God and I said, aha, you're testing me. I said, dear Lord, I'm going to believe in you and I trust in you. Your will be done. And I walked away from that phone laughing. If somebody would have seen me, they would have probably thought that I was crazy. She was born with something called sleep apnea, SIDS. She had to be hooked up to a monitor. And for the first 6 or 7 weeks, that buzzer went off about 8 to 10 times a night. Meaning that you got to get up and run to that crib not knowing if you're going to find a live baby or a dead one in that crib. It wasn't fun. 7 years later, on December 19th, my wife and I had our second child. When mostly everybody's home on their Christmas vacations. It was December 29th. She was 10 days old, 1:30 in the morning. My wife and I were watching TV with the baby in the bassinet next to us. I looked down and I saw milk coming out of her little child's mouth. I went out to the kitchen, got a rag, and came back in, started wiping her mouth. Next thing I know, our daughter is turning purple. My wife gets up and runs to the phone, dials 911, screaming and crying, hurry, hurry, please get here. I picked up her little daughter, and as I picked her up, stuff started coming out of her nose and her mouth, and she was limp in my hands, turning purple, and she was dying in my hands. What I did was I held her up to the Lord. I said, please, God, if you need someone, take me, not her. And she was dying in my hands. She was choking to death because she was born with something called reflux. We had to get her to the hospital, and the fear of losing her is unbelievable pain. Again, what an awesome God we serve, who gave his only son for us, and for us to have eternal life. I carry my Do Hugs Not Drugs message wherever I go. I run basketball camps, different things like that. I have, in my previous thoughts of speaking, I have all this, Clearview football player, it's right next to my house, dies in a hotel, snorts heroin for the first time. He was with his girlfriend, senior football player, and what did his girlfriend do? Call an ambulance? No, she said, you know what? She called all her friends saying, I don't want to get in trouble, what should I do? See, this was a guy that she was going to be marrying, but she was more worried about getting in trouble than saving her boyfriend's life, who passed away. Gloucester Catholic High School in New Jersey, they had a young man. I spoke at this high school. I spoke to this kid. He gave up drinking and drugging. He was a football player. They lost the football game 13-10 to Gloucester High School, their big rivalry. Of course, there was a big party that night. One of his fellow football players came over and picked him up, who had been drinking. They drove around the park in New Jersey until dark. As they're driving around the park, it becomes dark, and they drive out the exit, and they didn't realize that the gate was closed. They drove through the gate, and part of the gate came through the windshield and cut Mark's head off. The sad part is the funeral, all these kids are crying. All these kids are crying, but yet when I went up to visit his gravesite, I found all kinds of drug paraphernalia and alcohol. Alcohol helped kill their friends. That's why I say to people, what's going to take to make people learn? Not to make an excuse for what I did, but when I did drugs, I never had all this knowledge that all these kids are walking around with today. We never had all these TV commercials. We never had all this knowledge of what it does. And that's why I can't understand why people are doing it. Some people call it a disease. Well, guess what? It's the most preventable disease in the world. You just don't do it. You just don't pick up that first drug. Because when kids do it to make you feel good, yeah, that first time it might make you feel good. But after that, there's a lot of pain and suffering in your future right around the corner. What's the first thing a mother's supposed to do when they stick their 3-year-old daughter in the backseat of a car? Put her in a car seat, right? Here's a mother who wasn't hurting anybody, but just smoking a joint. This happened in Mulligan Hill, New Jersey. She was driving on a road that was straight, no turns or nothing. She didn't seat buckle her baby in the backseat of the car in the car seat. Somehow she ends up hitting a telephone pole. Her car splits in half. Her 3-year-old daughter was thrown from the car and killed. Well, the mother gets 5 years in jail, but the daughter gets a death sentence. Over and over again, Galloway youth dies from huffing gasoline. Boy sells poison ivy to his friends, telling him it was marijuana. Kids write me letters. My best friend does drugs. What can you do to help him? He's only 13 years old. 13's not bad. I've been in schools where second graders were caught with cocaine. Okay? Kindergartners have pill problems. My father did drugs and now he's in prison for 4 years. Well, at least we know where he is. I know somebody who died from drugs. She died the night that I was playing with her daughter. A couple of years before she died, she was in an institution, but she never wanted to stop. Another one, my mom started to take drugs last year, and about 2 months later she died. I didn't know what to do, so I ran away from home for 2 weeks thinking and drinking. Is that the answer to our problems, running away from them? You see, I used to blame my mother for dying for me turning to my drugs, until a friend of mine said, Al, next time you have a problem, point at it. I pointed down at my mother's grave. He said, lift up your thumb. How many fingers are pointing back at you? I said 3. He said, well, pal, it's 3-1. Your problem's not your mother, it's you. And boy, did that hurt, but he was right. Because 7 years later, when I stopped drinking and drugging, my mother was still dead. And what I want to do now is turn it into something positive, so when she sees me someday, that she won't beat on me, okay? She can be proud of what I'm doing, so that's why I'm doing all these things also. So it goes on and on and on with all these different things that I have. I stand up here to let you know that I had extensive heart disease, okay, as a direct result of my drug usage. I had 3 stents in my heart. They put them in 20 years ago, and that's what's keeping me alive. They found 5 blockages in my arteries going to my heart. 3 of the arteries was 95% closed. Only a pinhole of blood was getting through. But you know, thank God I was saved. Now, I consider myself a very, very lucky guy because God has truly blessed me. I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ into my life on January 29, 1989, and my life has never been the same. Do I still have problems? Oh, yeah. Do I still get flat tires? Oh, yeah. Do things happen in my life? Oh, yeah. But see, when my mother died, I didn't have the Lord into my life, so I turned to drugs. When I thought I was going to lose my 2 daughters, I turned to God, trusting in Him, praying. You see, no matter what we were going through in life, God is our comforter. He comforts us through His presence. It's God's nature to be with us, to give us comfort when we are mourning, brokenhearted, overwhelmed, worried, or sick. But we must acknowledge His presence and accept His comfort. He comforts us through His Word, the Bible. He comforts us through our prayers. He comforts us through our godly friends. Today, look for those who bring comfort, and for all of us, please practice comforting others. What a gift, eternal life, and it's free. The distance between heaven and hell is 12 inches. That's the distance between your mouth and your heart. Confess by thy mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you will be saved. See, because God only knows what's going to happen to any of us, even when we leave this church today. Now, I encourage everybody to get that relationship and trust in Him. I just want to read you 2 letters that I received from kids. Dear Al, this is from a 4th grader. My dad takes drugs and sells it too, and I think my mom might be taking drugs. My mom thinks my 2 sisters are on drugs, and she's always getting on her case. Don't do drugs, don't do drugs. Thanks for coming and talking to us about this. I was really seriously thinking about taking drugs just to fit in with my family. But you changed my mind for sure. And I have one other one. Dear Mr. Zolak, 6th grader. My cousin's mom takes drugs. She goes out into the street corner to sell her body to get the money for the drugs. His father is his mom's pimp. Sometimes she's so high she doesn't pay any attention to her kids. They are all dirty, and if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't eat. One time she was so spaced out, she left her needle in the kitchen. My cousin, who was 5 years old, picked up the needle and was trying to imitate her. He didn't know that the needle had something in it. Most of the time, his mother was trying to give it to us anyway. He had almost stuck himself with the needle when I walked into the kitchen. I'm having problems at home. She had asked me to try it. I was tempted, but when I heard you talk about what it does to you, I won't. Thank you ever so much for coming when you did, because I don't know what would have happened. Can we go to the next slide, please? Kids are never too young to learn. This is Caroline at 2 years old, and we tried to, I think you have to hold over it and click it. Hold, yeah. Woo! Wow. Tomorrow she's going to be doing push-ups. We're going to have her do suicides and everything. But you know what? We got to train them early. Do you know there's been studies done in Chicago, Baltimore, and some of the roughest inner cities in the United States of America? And the study was that kids who have God in their lives are less likely to make poor choices and poor decisions to go down that drug, alcohol, murder route. Parents, You are the most influential person in any of your children's life. You know, a lot of people don't want their kids to go through some of the problems that we went through when we were younger, but why not? That's how they're going to learn. We're there and we can help them and assist them, but we got to be careful not to enable them. I have a brother-in-law who was a drug addict for 45 years. My wife said he's starting to straighten out. Can he live with us? And I said, sure. One rule. If he uses, he's out. Okay? He came to church with us, doing everything right. After 2 or 3 months, one Saturday he doesn't come home. So my wife is calling him all night long, gets in touch with him 7 o'clock in the morning, and says, your stuff is on the front porch. He says, just that easy? I said, yep, just that easy. And he was living in the streets of Camden in his truck for many months. We would go down to Camden, and you know what? We'd be driving the streets, and we would find him. I'd go up and knock on his window. You ready? No, and all this other kind of stuff. No. My wife went down there with one of her friends. They couldn't find him. They stopped their car, side of the road, and they prayed. They went around the next block. Guess who they ran into? Her brother. We didn't give up. We just kept on planting seeds. And that's what this is right here. With all these people talking. See, really, we should be holding this in the Wells Fargo Center. And there should be a lot of people here. But I never get confused with numbers. Like I said to Dimitri, I said, I don't care if one person shows up. If one person shows up, you know what? We do it. We can't get confused with numbers. That doesn't impress me. But you know, my brother-in-law went to a Christian rehab down in Florida. He's been clean for 2 years. It's the longest he's ever been clean in his life. He's studying the Bible down there, going to all these different classes, and his life has turned around. He's a true miracle. They just he graduated last year from the rehab. He's still living on the campuses and all of the rehab. And this year at graduation, they interviewed him. He gave his testimony with him and his brother of how God has been working in his life ever since he stopped using. Because he's lucky to be alive also. But God has a purpose. And our purpose is to try to educate people. And you're going to hear other speakers here today sharing their story, sharing their pain. And listen, don't go away saying, not my kid, not my school, not my neighborhood. It's not going to happen to me. Because believe me, sooner or later, something's going to happen. You know, we want you to be the role models of the future, young people, by making the right decisions, by making the right choices. You know, you're going to have a lot of people out there, I call them frenemies. They're not your friends. You know, hey, pressure people, peer pressure can be good. It doesn't have to be bad. Pressure people into doing the right thing, studying, going after their dreams. You know, hey, shoot for the stars. If you fall short, you're still going to be okay. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.
The next speaker is George, Ethan, and Van Gude.
Hey guys, how are you doing? It's on? Yeah. There we go, a little bit better.
Pick it up and move it, because I think it's off balance. Sorry.
Short, but still. Hey guys, how are you? That was a really good speaker. I liked a couple things that he said, especially always try and help the next right person, regardless. And that's what we've been talking about in church and everywhere else. And another thing about that is what it took me my entire life to learn. You do the next right thing, the next right thing always seems to happen, regardless of the situation. And whatever happens to you, whatever bad thing you might think happens, before when I was using, I would catastrophize and think it was the end of the world. And now, being sober, I've been sober now, March 31st.